our mission is clear and never has been more clear around the 16% mission. It's just we began to say, hey, just like a lot of organizations, and I'm sure tons that you're working with, Jason, and the RSP Creative team, is our mission was clear. Even going through the pandemic, we were more energized by and more convinced that it's important and critical for the kingdom. But we just realized, like, hey, there's maybe some things, strategic intents, initiatives, and strategy that we need to rethink of how do we best accomplish our mission.
Hi, I'm Jason Bowman from RSP Creative, and I'm here with my friend Jason Stewart. Exponential provides faith leaders with resources of all kinds so that they can create multiplication movements, churches that plant churches, that plant churches, that plant churches. And one of the exponential resources that I think, man, it seems like every different flavor in the body of Christ is there. And I get to meet such a diverse group of leaders every year. One of my favorite things to be at every year is their Orlando conference. Again, one of my favorite things to be at. But you also have cohorts and low cost downloadables, all kinds of free resources, high value research for pastors and churches, all with a desire to help churches plant churches that plant churches that plant churches. Jason, I'm excited about what you and Exponential is doing on the planet. So thank you for joining me. Exponential is known for a 16% mission, and I love it. Can you tell me what that mission is and why is it 16%?
Yeah, that's Jason. Just first say we're grateful for the ArtSpeak creative team, and we worked on a couple of really big projects for us over the last several years, and you've been a great guide for me and for our team, and there's all the other things that you guys have come alongside. So we're grateful for that. And I love how we can jump into this kind of dialogue from the standpoint of mission, because that's what our heart beats for. And I think that's really, I mean, every organization has a mission. I know you help organizations clarify and communicate their mission, but I think just in my time of Exponential, that's something that I've come to appreciate deeply about our organization and our team. Is that, and just those we get to impact, that we have what we call this community with a common cause, that our mission is so central, and we get to articulate that around what we call the 16% mission. And so the big idea around the mission for us, we use that. I guess I'll explain it in two ways, Jason. Is one, specific to our mission, is we want to see a tipping point of 16% of churches to be reproducing and multiplying churches, to see a movement of Jesus and the gospel in North America in our time and our day. We get that concept of 16%, and a lot of people have probably read about it in the book Tipping Point. Marcus Buckingham comes from a theory, kind of a change theory of the law of diffusion of ideas, that once an idea or a behavior gets into a culture, at 16%, it becomes a tipping point where it's just part of the culture. And so what we're wanting to see, and what our mission's all about, is we want to change the scorecard of the American church from addition as success toward multiplication as success, because addition and growing churches is good and helpful, but it doesn't keep pace and really to see that movement of the gospel. And if we want to truly see our nation be saturated with the good news of the kingdom, it has to come through reproducing and multiplying churches. And so that's disciples making disciple makers. So really important in that language, that leads to churches, as you said, churches planting churches that are planting churches, because studies say, and we see it, that new churches reach more people for Jesus, are more evangelistically driven and effective than existing churches. And with all the diversity in our society that we see, and all the nooks and crannies and just unique pockets of society, it's going to take new forms and new expressions of churches and all the different subcultures and neighborhoods and communities to make a dent for the gospel in our day. So that's kind of how we rally around behind that 16% mission, and kind of, I guess, some of the theory of why we have this kind of a unique number of 16%.
Yeah. So tell you that 16% specifically, for you guys, I understand, is like that would be what you would call the hope is that 16% of churches in the United States would become a level 5 multiplying church. Can you just real quick break down what those levels are?
Yeah. So we do.
All my friends.
Yeah. So I'll, we do workshops on this that really gets down into, an hour of conversation and content. But if really to kind of hit some high points, is several years ago, we were trying to give a picture to church leaders of what we're seeing happening in the U.S. church. And so simply put, there were churches who were subtracting, churches who were growing, and then churches who were multiplying, just math, minus, plus, X, multiplication. But then as we looked at it more to kind of fill the picture in, we realized like, hey, in between declining and adding, there's this, churches who are plateaued or stuck. And then in between adding and multiplying, there's churches who are reproducing. And so that's where we get these 5 levels of multiplication. Level 1, subtracting, churches declining. Level 2, plateaued churches. Level 3, addition churches, churches who are growing. Level 4, churches who are reproducing. And we would define that specifically of one church who is reproducing or planting autonomous independent churches. And then level 5 would be churches who have 3 generations of church planting from them. That's where we begin to see movement. So a way to simply define level 5 churches or level 4 churches to the 4th generation, kind of that 2 Timothy 2:2 kind of idea that we point to disciple making that also applies to church planting. And so, that's our heart. So today, what we see, there are 7% of churches in our latest research. There's 7% of churches in the U.S. who are level 4 reproducing or level 5 multiplying. And to be honest, Jason, there's really very few in the North American context that are level 5 multiplication. Most are level 4 reproducing churches. We see a lot of the level 5 multiplying movements in the global South, Africa, Asia, where we see true kind of disciple making and church planting movements. And our heart is we want to see that happen in the U.S. We're starting to see some signs in different ways and unique ways that we're excited about, but we just know we've got to get it to that 16%. We are encouraged that when we began to articulate this mission, a decade-ish ago, that the research we could find at that point was 4%. So we see the needle moving from 4 to 6 to 7%. We're going to do some research in the coming year to just get another touch point of how are we doing? Are we still at 7? Especially because that 7% was research done prior to the pandemic. And we know the pandemic disrupted a lot of things, including just the focus of the local church leader and denominations and networks around church planting, because it became, with the pandemic, a lot of just, can we sustain normal life? Much think of external, can we reproduce and multiply?
Yeah, well, I love that you're, aiming at something so much beyond additional growth. A lot of the conferences, and some of them I enjoy too, but a lot of them are aiming at, hey, grow. Healthy things grow. You need to grow. Here's examples of churches that grow, resources for growing your church. I love that you're like, yeah, sure, and then plant, and then create something that multiplies, and plant churches that plant churches that plant churches, like. And that just applies across the globe. I know at Exponential this last year, in our sessions, as well as in the lobby and everybody I met, man, you guys had a truly global reach. There were leaders. How many different countries, just out of curiosity, were at the
Yeah, we know there were a couple dozen, roughly. We haven't counted it up, but we were there's always been some global presence, but I think this year we felt that when we say a global conference, it truly had that representation, where there was from about half of our main stage speakers were from outside the U.S., but then just the number of attendees who were from different countries. And so we were encouraged.
Yeah, I think even our pre-conference had like Sweden and the UK and Brazil and Australia. And I think we had 6 or 7 different nations just in our one room. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's right.
In 2023, I know you guys had made a lot of changes. You guys pivoted, I think, personally very well through the pandemic, continuing the conversation, continue to resource leaders. But in 23, Dave Ferguson, right, the co-founder of Community Christian Church and New Thing, became the president of Exponential under his now leadership at Exponential, which I know he was always a part for a long time. Because I've been logging on to the Exponential conference when I was a church planner years and years ago, watching the free stream. So I know he's been a part of the conversation. But now under his leadership, Exponential's decided to make some directional changes. Can you tell us about some of that?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. It's Dave. He's always been a part of Exponential. Dave's actually one of our two co-founders, he and Todd Wilson. And so Todd was in the CEO seat up until about 2 years ago. And then Todd had a kind of like a sense of calling that he wanted to be a strategic advisor over multiple ministries, including Exponential around multiplication. And so Dave just in his season of life said, I can kind of step into not just the kind of president of the conferences, but really kind of that CEO seat for us. And it stepped in kind of from an interim to a permanent role over the past year. And in that, just as that baton handoff was happening, we really sensed as an organizational internally that was affecting us externally is like, we kind of coined the term for us is like we're moving from Exponential 2.0 to 3.0. We're about to be an organization that's 2 decades old. And so that 1.0 lasted from a focus of like what our core focus was and core responsibility from like, the mid 2000s to the mid teens. And then in 2.0, we made some shifts that where we wanted to focus not just on church planting, but church multiplication and like lean into that level 5 movement and that we were talking about a minute ago. But we realized over the last couple of years that as we made some of those decisions back 2015, 2016, we had some unintended consequences that were good, but were kind of holding us back as we looked at, what Exponential 3.0 could look like for us. Is we needed to get back to maybe a better expression or demonstrating some of our roots and core values. Like our mission is clear and never has been more clear around the 16% mission. It's just we began to say, hey, just like a lot of organizations, and I'm sure tons that you're working with, Jason, and the RSP Creative team, is our mission was clear. Even going through the pandemic, we were more energized by it and more convinced that it's important and critical for the kingdom. But we just realized like, hey, there's maybe some things, strategic intents, initiatives, and strategy that we need to rethink of how do we best accomplish our mission. And so in that kind of the texture and some of the like expression of that, one was just one of our core values has always been, you can do it, we can help. Mm-hmm. We want to pour gasoline on what others are doing in church multiplication. We want to be kind of under the deck of helping them accomplish their multiplication dream. But I think we made, as we were, with the right intent, trying to do some strategic things in that Exponential 2.0 season, we realized that we were beginning to really kind of posture ourselves and really some of our core customers and partners were really beginning to feel like we were saying, no, we at Exponential can do it. You help us. And so a lot of, what we felt intuitively, feedback we were getting, and then really what your team was helping us with is like, how do we express and really live into that better and refocus on you can do it, we can help. I think another big thing for us in this season and strategic intent is really refining like what's our responsibility and who are we really trying to serve. Yes, we want to serve all church leaders and denominations and networks, but when we get really focused, what is that? And so in our mission of the 16% mission of multiplication and being a community with a common cause around that cause of church multiplication, we said, hey, really our focus is the multiplier. And that's not a common vernacular word. So in that, it gave us the opportunity to define what that means for us. And so this definition we worked really hard on, a lot of conversations, is a multiplier for us. What we're going after is a healthy disciple-making leader who champions reproduction.
So good.
And all of those words have a lot of weight. And so, like, disciple making leader, that was some of the things, even in Exponential 2.0, we realized the core mission of the church is making disciple makers. And for us to see church planting become a greater reality and focus and win for church in the U.S., what we're seeing is, like, it first begins with the disciple making and disciple makers. But then those leaders who are disciple makers and not just, hey, growing big ministries like we talked about, that at their core, they're disciple making leaders who champion reproduction, that they want to not to be about, just come, stay, or come and have, but come and go. Let us equip you to go and be missionaries where you live, work, study, and play, and then plant churches and reproducing. But that in our cultural moment, we're realizing being a healthy leader, but it's critical. And I think as we began, I like to say, as we began to share this language and this focus with those close to us and our partners and just people who have been connected with Exponential for a long time, and we just said, hey, does this resonate with you? Like going after multipliers and helping people become mature multipliers and practitioners, being a healthy disciple-making leader who champions reproduction. The response I feel like everybody was giving back was like, you had me at healthy.
Yeah, that's so good.
Because we all know, like, we see what is happening in the church and our culture, and a lot of the impact because of the lack of unhealth, whether it's just bad church cultures where staff and leaders are burnt out and they're walking away from ministry, or to even those who are making critical mistakes, leadership or moral failures that are compromising their ministry and their family life. And we just said, no, we've got to go after health relationally, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually if we're actually going to be disciple-making leaders who champion reproduction. And so that's what we're going after. We've got a lot of friends who are helping along, and we've got a long way to go to say, hey, we're being super effective, but we feel like there's a lot of momentum of people coming around and saying, hey, we want to jump in this with you, and we want to go after this with you. And so even in that 16% mission, if I can bring it back and some clarity we found and the work we've been doing over this last year, is that if we're going to see that 16% mission accomplished in our time, is we need to see 60,000 multipliers. That's a huge number. Okay. And we feel the responsibility to be catalytic in that way and have strategic intents in that way. But really, it's not just Exponential. It's all the hundreds of denominations and networks and the churches, like, all coming together to accomplish this mission together collaboratively. And we see, like, hey, it's this network here and this denomination here. We get the chance to just come alongside and be a part of their multiplication strategy. They're going after those multipliers too, that we feel like we can actually accomplish this. We're used to it, just felt like an exciting dream. Not know, like, this can be achievable, this tangible goal of 60,000 multipliers.
So good. And I'm the same way. You had me at healthy, and you had, but I love breaking it down into a very tangible, like, hey, we need this many people to sign up to be a healthy disciple maker. And we can do that by partnering with other, not doing it ourselves, but just resourcing, being champions for the conversation and resources of it. And so I love that. I know it's been an honor and privilege of my team to be able to partner with you guys in that brand messaging process. You said whittling that down, each word carried weight. And I know, that's right when we got to come alongside and partner with you guys and refresh your branding. How did the brand messaging process help you refine, like the ArtSpeak brand messaging process? How did that help you refine your message down to that multiplier?
Yeah. I think it gave us first, as a team, collaboratively to process really what do we mean, and how does this sound to, to use this, our customers, but really our partners and those we're trying to influence and impact and serve. And so it just gave us the space with your team asking us clarifying questions. It pulled out of us really what was stirring inside. And so again, like, for us as a leadership team and for Dave, I would say for us as someone who's living the life of a multiplier, we want to point people to that kind of example, or others in our ministry, like a Ralph Moore, who's one of the few, like, leaders we can find in the North American context who has led a level 5 movement. Larry Walkemeyer, who's done that on our team, but just pull out of them like what are we saying and what are good examples of what it means to be a multiplier. And then it's given us, we feel like, better sticky language to communicate this kind of an imagination we want to give leaders, like helping them dream their multiplication dream and really stir within them to say like, I know we've all learned this idea that as an organization and when it comes to communication, strategic messaging, branding, that we need to position the person we're trying to help and serve and impact or our customer. They're the hero, not the organization. So yes, but I mean, we've already have that kind of idea embedded in what we do. I mean, Dave's written a book called Hero Maker, and the work of that. I mean, Dave and Warren Bird, a great friend of it, like wrote that book. But that book came out of collaborative conversations with, we didn't have the term yet, but multipliers within our community who are living out disciple making and church planting, and saying, what does it take to really advance this mission? And we talked about 5 shifts. And one of them was like, it's the hero story of the primary leader of the local church moving from hero to hero maker. And it just sparked ideas. And so Dave and Warren Bird were able to pull some of those shifts and be able to look at leaders like Ralph Moore and be able to paint a picture of what that looks like. And so, so for us, it really helped us move from that 2.0 where we kind of fallen into maybe some bad habits in communication of saying, we're the hero, we can do it, you help us. And the strategic messaging process moved us to, that are those we're trying to serve the multiplier, they're the hero. And it gave us discipline to communicate that way. One of the things your team really helps us with is paint this picture of kind of that Dead Poets Society and Robin Williams of Seize the Day, that kind of inspirational moment, and realizing for us, that's kind of one of the roles we play in this big picture of the kingdom that we're all doing together, is that we have a track record and a privilege to inspire this broad community to be a multiplier and to go after it. We kind of charge them up, but also want to help move them forward. And so that's one of the core things the strategic messaging process helped us with, just to kind of give us the energy and imagination for the role that we play.
Oh, I love that. I think there's so much challenging and inspiring by what you're saying. One, obviously the mission is awesome, but I think it's challenging because I think we all face that gravity. It's not like we helped you unearth something or gave you something that wasn't already there.
Right.
But often, right, in leadership, we drift, and we, like you said, we started out with that same mindset, but then noticed as we progressed and as we served, it just slowly became more about us and less about making them the hero. So I love hearing that it's back, helped you refine really back to that initial, kind of dust off that initial,
right.
Also put some great words around it. Our team also worked on expanding your visual brand and giving you a visual, enhancing the visual identity. How has the new brand and all of that, both messaging and visual, helped serve in your role? What's been the reaction been generally?
Yeah, I would say, like, first, I think your team listened to us well about what our needs were. Because yes, we were making some strategic shift to Exponential 2.0 to 3.0, but we've been blessed with kind of, broadly speaking, a trusted brand. Like, Exponential's gained some trust in the church space to be a place where, like, we can convene. It's like we like to say our global conference is like a family reunion. It really has that feeling, and we're grateful for that. We feel that God's grace and kindness on that. And so we kind of said, and I know I voiced this directly to your team, was like, we feel like it's not so much a rebrand. And then I said, is it a refresh? I don't even think it was that. It was just like an update, because like, visually speaking, it's what our brand was the last 10 years has served us well. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to kind of give some creative freedom to your team to kind of lead us somewhere, but also to say, like, we did want to hold true to what was visually speaking, what was there, but align it with our strategic messaging, but also realizing that there was some work that we wanted to do to help it stand the test of time for the next 10 years. And so like the texture and the feeling of relationship that was core within us, but it was something we felt like from a healthy disciple making leader who champions reproduction and just doing a better job of living out that sense of trust and partnership, and you can do it, we can help. And so we asked your team to help us represent that visually, which that came through some of the color choices that we refined. And just as we began to interact with it, we feel like, this is really helping us not only express those ideas and those values better, but the other thing, the ask that we made is like, give us a set of tools, visually speaking, for our brand that gave us a range of more flexibility. Because I think like as our team had used our old brand guide, there wasn't a lot to it, which at first was like, oh, we've got all this freedom. But what happened, I think, with our team is it became confusing at times and even more challenging because we didn't have enough riverbanks or guardrails. And so we would throw something together to try to communicate a strategy, an opportunity, an event. And it felt like we were kind of spinning our wheels because we were at times kind of all over our place. Yeah, we put the right colors and we used the right font, but it just didn't seem as coordinated and cohesive and aligned as what now we're able to do with a brand guide that stacks on top of the strategic messaging, and that we have a set of what I just say design elements along with our font and colors. That's an expanded palette that gives us more range to communicate and to be aligned, but also still everything just feels right and communicates results and relationships, which is really important to us, that balance, because we know like the kingdom is relationships, right?
Yeah.
And then you graded that, but we're going for results. We've got a big mission. And so we want to hold those in the right balance and continue to calibrate those. And I think that's what the update or the refresh, if that's the right way in our visual brand, that's what you guys helped us accomplish.
Yeah, well, I will say just my own personal experience when you're talking about relational and resourceful and, results and relationship. I know it was 3 years ago. So I've watched online quite a bit when I was planting and just watched the streams, watched the content providers. When I was there 3 years ago, I came to the event by myself. I came to Orlando by myself. Yeah. I knew you. I knew because we'd worked together. I knew a few people on your team. I have never been to a conference where I just felt, and it's large. There's no doubt about it. It's one of the larger ones in the country, but I left feeling like I met friends. Like I had so many just rich conversations. People were just so talkative, and it did feel like a family reunion that I was accepted at, even though it was my first time there. So then the next year, I brought back more friends. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to bring some friends. I'm going to bring some other friends with me. And we met there. And it was the same experience for me and for them. And so this last year, we brought even more friends. I brought like a whole team this time. And we're planning the same thing again for this next time and expanding the conference. We love it. But I just want to say that's my personal experience is that Exponential, just the event itself and all the people. That's probably attitude reflects leadership, but that's it's being experienced by everybody.
Yeah, that's good to hear, Jason. I'd say another thing too that I think is important in kind of the challenge I would say that we brought your team in this brand update is this was also at a convergence of a time where we were folding in another nonprofit that we had acquired, and or that the Leadership Network several years ago, their board came to us and said, hey, can you in Exponential, because of a lot of relationships, and the founder of Leadership Network was a personal mentor to our two co-founders, and said, could you guys steward Leadership Network into the future? So we took on that challenge. And after several years of kind of a relaunch, we just began to realize like, hey, the things that many of us have benefited from Leadership Network and how it aligns with our mission would be best for Leadership Network to give birth to kind of a focus within our ministry of Exponential NEXT. And so you guys helped us work on the kind of relaunch of Leadership Network, did great work. And then we kind of came back with you another challenge and said, hey, help us like put these two together with messaging and visual identity that makes it feel one. Because we were trying to hold two ministries within one organization, and we just realized after a season, like, we're going to be more effective. We're going to steward both of these ministries if it's one organization clearly. And so that was also another challenge that got wrapped in all of this work we did together, is giving birth to Exponential NEXT this past fall. And so you helped us really anchor everything on the three words we're talking about. We've talked about results. That's always been there. We're going after that. Relationships. We had to raise the level of that for our effectiveness. And then the third word, next, that, word organization's always bent towards the future and what's next for the church and what's that help us catalyze multiplication. And so, yeah, it was a lot of fun. And to this project that you guys really helped us with, and we're grateful for.
Yeah, again, it's been such an honor. Tell me, what is next? What is ahead for Exponential?
Right. Yeah. So we're really living into the kind of the expanding. I mean, well, I'd say first, like, when we're talking about global conference, that means, like, man, we just feel such God's kindness. And I mean, our global conference, like, is getting close to sold out. We're just months away from the last one. And so we have two national conferences now, and we call them national conferences because they take the schedule of our global conference and put them in two other places in the country. So we have Exponential Central that will be in the Chicagoland area, and that is in November. And so again, it's the full schedule, the same 180 return to disciple making theme that we had in Orlando this past year. And then in October, we have Exponential West. It'll be in the San Francisco area. And again, a full main stage workshops, over 50 workshops at both Exponential West and Central. And with pre-conferences. So, church leaders, denomination network leaders can bring their teams. And we're excited about that for this fall. Another, what we feel like often can be the most impactful thing we have the privilege of being a part of is our Multipliers learning communities. We just wrapped up 12 cohorts last week, and we'll kick off 15 more cohorts in the fall. And that's we really go in depth with leaders. And a lot of denominations are using that as kind of their multiplication strategy to equip leaders to help them have that mindset shift from what we call level 3 addition to level 5 multiplication, and that big mindset shift. And then we're dreaming about other strategies to help leaders move from those learning communities to put a plan together and to implement it. And then the Exponential NEXT piece, as that's becoming more and more a part of our ministry, we're just excited how that's helping us kind of curate content around big ideas that we think are shaping the future of the church, whether it's AI, microchurch, we do 5 or 6 topics a year. So exponential.org/next, you can read some great content, whether it's video series, articles, podcasts. But then we have some unique initiatives underneath Exponential NEXT. We have a ventures platform where you've been a part of this, Jason, like, where we get to scout out and get recommendations of projects of ministries that we feel like are kind of a taste of what the future of the church could look like, and they're great learning laboratories for us. We get to pull those projects close to us through our venture partners. We get to distribute grants to help accelerate those ministries, and then we get a front row seat to the learning and distribute that learning. So we're doing that, some research projects around Exponential NEXT that we really feel like that are going to help all of us as church leaders lean more into the future and take hold of the opportunities that God is putting in front of us and what the Holy Spirit's up to.
So good. So much. And we'll make sure that where this video lives, there's going to be great links for
thank you, man.
Listening to all that you guys are doing. If someone, Jason, were to ask you if they should partner with ArtSpeak Creative, what would you tell them?
Yes. I recommend you guys all the time because of how you have helped us. I mean, I would say that, like, I've been on church staffs. I've wore the communications pastor director hat. I've been a student pastor. I've been executive pastor. Key roles that need the kind of partnership and collaboration expertise you guys bring. I've been at 2 churches. One where I've led the name change process from First Baptist Church to, a new name, which is like, that's a big deal. And then rebranding and re-strategizing in other churches that always lead into the need for rebranding and things like that. And so I've been a part of those projects in the past, and then getting to do two now with you guys, and the level of process and expertise and the finished product, I would say, like, just the extensiveness of what you guys deliver and your team delivers in the finished brand guide, which is just a reflection of the culmination of all the work that your team puts into it, like the branding and the messaging. Like, it at times I would say, like, it's intensive and it really works our team through, but it's critical. But the great thing is now, as I'm executing all different kinds of projects, I'm just pulling from that all the time. And now with some of the technology tools, I get to put those in.
Yeah.
And it just generates stuff that, yes, does it help me be more efficient in my workflow and our team? Absolutely. But the more thing is, it helps us be effective and to be crystal clear. And I know, you could teach us hours on this, is we're consistent and what we're communicating and how we're showing that. And that helps people know how to engage with us and how we can serve them. So I would say, like, the process you led us through is relational and fun and effective, but it's always right. It's about the end result and what you guys deliver. And that the end result of those brand guides for both, especially as we talked about this refresh for Exponential 3.0, it's so thorough and so rich and extensive. Like, to me, it's like, yes, use RSP Creative if that's what you need, because it's been such an incredible tool for us.
I love that clarity. I say it a lot. That clarity leads to more efficiency and more effectiveness, and let's do that relationally. So, Jason, there may just be, last question. There may be some friends listening, friends of mine, friends of yours, those that on the internet watching right now, who they talked real quick to multipliers who don't know that they're multipliers yet. With everything going on in the world, what kind of word of encouragement would you give to them right now?
Yeah. I would say, if you're in ministry or you have like a sense of excitement or a responsibility or conviction that God wants to use you for the kingdom, embedded inside of you is this idea of you are a multiplier. And God wants to use your life and the Jesus inside of you to make disciples who make disciples. I often say, is like, I want to help you. We want to help you take the Jesus that's in you and that's transformed your life and put that into others so they can be mobilized into mission wherever God has put them, in their neighborhood, at their school, in their workplace, on the ball field, or at the basketball courts, like you and I talk about all the time, and so there's that one, being a multiplier. That's just the pursuit of a great, flourishing, good life.
Yeah.
And part of that is giving that to others. And so in being a multiplier, I would say, is also, like we've talked about, is that idea of, like, there's new frontiers that you get to pioneer that the Holy Spirit wants to take you into. And if there's a place that Exponential can help you do that, that's what we want to do. And like your team has helped us say, you're a multiplier. We're here to help you multiply.
Yeah. And I would just add, with your new emphasis on health, to the leaders that have been out there grinding and running and haven't leaned into the Exponential resources and conversation, whether that's a cohort or one of their national or absolutely their global conference next March, you can lead healthy, right? We can become healthy disciple makers with a focus on reproduction. But get healthy, right? There's help, there's resources. You guys have a bunch. You can go to exponential.org and see the links out from all of that. But Jason, thank you so much for your time and your partnership. And I look forward to seeing you at the next Exponential event.
Let's do it.